Okay, so before I start, can everyone please make sure that their microphones are on mute and the videos are on mute, videos are turned off as well? Thank you. So first and foremost, welcome. Thank you so much for making it today. And also congratulations. Congratulations on making the time for yourself to work on your business, to work on yourself and to attend an event like this. Today, we are talking about supercharging your business and your little black book, like the pros. And I'm honored and I'm very excited to have Mr. KP, Kalpesh Patel, co-hosting today. So those of you who don't know KP, KP is one of the most best networked people I know, a natural at connecting people and connecting with people. I've known him for an incredibly long time and just super excited to share his knowledge today and help you all kind of elevate what you're looking to do in your businesses. So KP, you know, connected with the likes of Rolls-Royce, Investec Private Bank, Chivas Regal, Roger Dubois, Soneva Resorts, loads of these massive names around the world. And so I think KP, if we dive straight into it.
Yeah, and thank you for that lovely introduction. It's always a bit cringy when you're hearing about yourself like that, you know, but
I saw you blushing, KP.
But bless you, my friend. So,
no worries.
And thanks for having me co-hosting this with you.
No, it's exciting. All right, so KP, tell us, oh, just got a joinee. Tell me, can you tell us, in your words, what is networking and why do you think it's so important?
So look, I mean, it's definitely a great question to start off with, and I never really thought about networking in the way that I think about it now. And I think, you know, people, and it's a word that's thrown around all the time, right? So it's, you know, oh, let's do a networking event, or let's have this network, or let's have that network. But I think there's a lot of people who generally get it wrong because they don't think about it. They really don't take time to really understand it, you know? And look, I mean, networking in its truest form is very simple, but at the same time, it's hugely complex as well. So you really have to take time to understand it. And by default, also understanding yourself as well. Look, by nature, I'm an extrovert, you know, so I'm very, you know, open in terms of having conversations and I love it. But I appreciate that a lot of people aren't, you know, a lot of people are a bit more reserved. You know, there are people who are introverts. You know, those of you who may or may not know my brother Sonny, who's my business partner equally, he's a bit more of an introvert. He doesn't really, you know, enjoy the networking side of things. You know, he builds great relationships, but so I equally understand that there is that whole kind of process of, you know, different mindsets as well, you know. But look, in simple terms, Kooks, you know, networking is the foundation of building relationships. And that in its truest and simplest form, that is what networking is. It's building that foundation for relationships.
Okay, so just so that I'm understanding it correctly, what you're saying is when people go into networking, initially for a lot of people maybe that you've come across, it's like, I want to get a sale, I want to get a deal, I want to get something from that person. But what you're actually saying is that it's only the first step. It's about that initial connection with the person that you perhaps want to get to know and do something with in the future. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, we are all, you know, you, me, everybody on this call, we're all on a mission. We're all on a journey to go somewhere, to get something, right? So whether it is, you know, investment, or whether it is the next client, or whether it is a mentor, or whether it is something else, we're all trying to get something, you know? So we don't go to networking events, or we don't go to specific things, you know. Actually, you know what? Sometimes we just go because we enjoy it, but the reality is, and even if we're going to something because we enjoy it, we're still getting something. We're still looking for something. That's, you know, self-gratification, pleasure, enjoyment. We're still looking for something. So, but people generally jump from where they are to that, right? What am I looking for? You know, I walk into a room and I know that guy's an investor. Let me make a beeline for him or her, or, you know, there is, you know, I know that person is in the market looking for my product. Let me go and make a beeline for that person. But there is this whole in between, which a lot of people miss out, you know, and that is kind of, you know, and I guess, look, we live in a world which is very fast paced. So everyone is on this, you know, hamster wheel of the next best thing, the next thing, the next thing, you know. And I think there's a very core element which people do miss out. And I think that is the relationship building. So, and that is, look, you know, I guess initially by default, you know, what I used to do many years ago, but now as the business has got bigger and, you know, I'm surrounded by different types of people in different industries, I not only value, but I really understand, you know, relationships, and I understand the value, what that brings. So that hopefully kind of gives you a
so networking, you know, is the foundation stone. And why would you say that that's important?
Because look, it's a tried and tested method, right? So yeah, it's hugely important because if you ask any successful entrepreneur or business person, they're always going to tell you it's a mix of a few things: skill, luck, and your network, right? Of course, there's other things that go into it, you know, your drive and your tenacity, but then your network will always, you know, look, it's a bit of a cliche, but people always say, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Your network is your net worth. You know, it's become kind of throwaway words now, but essentially they've always kind of, you know, stood the test of time. That's really what it is. And once you start to really fully understand, you know, relationship building, and that starts with obviously networking. So that's obviously what we're talking about here. You know, the networking is not networking for the sake of it. Networking, you know, is essentially the form of building relationships. That's essentially, you know, that will lead into everything else. That leads into everything.
Makes complete sense.
Sorry, you know, something I wrote down actually, and I wanted to, I know a lot of people have got their cameras off, so I can't see people's hands, but I was going to ask a show of hands to see if people had read this book, and I'm sure most of you, I hope most of you may have heard of it. It's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I don't know, Kooks, have you read it? Or
yeah, many times.
Yeah. So, you know, that
actually, in the chat box, yes or no. Can you just drop a yes or a no if you've read that book or heard of that book? Yes.
Yeah. So those who have read it, you know, no. You know, I mean, look, let me just put it in context. This book was originally published in 1936. 1936. That's when this. So when you now look at it, and this is probably one of the most, you know, famous. I mean, it's 30 million copies sold globally, right? So you know, this book is phenomenal, and it gives you really, I mean, how to win friends and influence people. I mean, literally, it's in your face. You know, by Dale Carnegie, and
changed my life. This is it's such a powerful book.
It does. It sets the blueprint for people in business, building relationships, you know, and not just in business, in your personal life as well. You know, when you know, with your partners, with your children, whoever it may be, with your friends, it really kind of looks at what, why, and how, you know, and it really kind of delves into your psyche. So look, very much a recommendation if you haven't already.
I'll put a link to the book in the chat box if you want to scroll back and find it. So look, how do you think networking leads to personal and business growth?
So, you know, again, Kooks, you know, a good question, and let me kind of just explain the formula. Right, so you've got networking.
And actually, if you want to jump, everyone, sorry, KP, to jump in, everyone, I forgot to mention at the beginning, please do take notes. Write down any light bulb moments, because you're going to forget 95% of what you're hearing here today. So there's going to be prompts, and please make sure you're taking notes and writing things down, because it's the only way you're going to take action on what's coming out of today's session. Sorry, KP, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Look, the formula is pretty simple, right? Networking, it's the start of the relationship, building the relationship, follow up, yeah, and then getting the job done. Those 4 key elements, which may sound very, very, very simple, if you get it right, you're done, you're sorted, you're fantastic, right? But many people spend years and years and years trying to perfect each stage. There's a lot of people who don't realize those stages. So they're jumping from 1 to the 3rd one and missing at number 2, or 2 to 4 and missing at number 3, And, let me just repeat that again. So you've got network, start building the relationships. Number 2, which is build the relationships, which is hugely important. I could meet you somewhere. I could meet you at an event, Kooks, and I could say, it's lovely to meet you. I love what you're doing, with your numerous businesses. That's fantastic. You've given me a few minutes of your time. I've given you a few minutes of my time. That's just the foundation. What's next? And this is where a lot of people do fail, right? Is that there is no next, because we all get caught up in our lives, The next is very much, arranging, whether it's a coffee or a face-to-face or a Zoom or whatever it may be, and getting to know that person and building that relationship. That is a huge part of it. That sometimes can take, 1 meeting, sometimes that can take 10 meetings. I mean, that's in meetings with people where, you just click and you just get on, and you know that actually this is the start of a great relationship, where sometimes it takes a bit more time, but that building the relationship is hugely important. Number 3 is follow up. There was something which I read, a number of years ago, and it basically said 50% of deals are lost because people don't follow up, And let me just say that again, right? So 50% of deals are lost because people don't follow up. And that is what I learned years ago. And, and everyone is probably guilty on some level, about this, where really, you send out a bunch of proposals, but then you don't follow up. It's not, and, people have this mindset, oh, they'll reach out if they're interested.
They won't reach out. No way.
And listen, and I know it's no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
You're to save yourself. So, and that's very much the kind of mindset on this. You have to follow up. You have to, get your team, make your team understand to follow up. Because if you're sending out 10 proposals and you're hoping for them to come back to you, guess what's going to happen? Right. So it's that follow-up process is hugely important. And then the last one is getting the job done. Relationships can be made, or broken with this. Essentially, it's getting the job done and making sure that, is done to your best ability. What you deliver is what you promised on. So those kind of 4 stages are hugely important.
And how do you think those 4 steps, so the networking, the relationships, the follow-up, and then the getting the job done, how do those 4 steps lead to personal and business growth in your experience?
Yeah, so look, I mean, if you, and this is something which is very psychological, you may know the concept of, okay, I need to do this, I need to follow these 4 steps and whatnot, but you also have to be very, very open in terms of learning. The biggest failure in life, in my opinion, is thinking you know everything. And I always say this: the worst people are those with God complexes. Because when you get to a certain point, you have God complexes. And it's so somebody said to me, just another quick analogy. So I met this amazing rugby player a couple of years ago, and he said, somebody asked him, why is it that, you have rugby players, the huge mountainous people, right? When they are stopped by the referees, why is it that they are so humble and, you know, they listen to the referees, whereas in football, you know, it's aggression. You know, you try and stop one of the players and you get abuse, and, you know, they give abuse to the referees. And so why is that? And what he said is that, number one, you've got, you know, rugby players generally a little bit older. They don't get paid as much. Footballers, they're essentially kind of early 20-year-old kids who are getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, which then gives them what? God complex. So anything that they can do is not wrong. So what happens when you give kids that kind of money, they walk around with God complex. You know, nothing I can do is wrong. And that's the biggest failure. When you walk around and you think, okay, I'm great at this, I'm amazing at this, you know, I can't learn anything more. That's where the decline starts, you know.
You mentioned earlier that when we were speaking, you had a little story.
I did. So look, you know, part of my growth as well is, and the psychological part of it, Kooks, is very much kind of understanding yourself and not beating yourself up about it, but really being open to not just listening to the world around you. And I'll give you an example. So I used to work with, you know, a lovely guy who's become one of my best friends. His name's Greg. And, you know, I hired Greg onto my team many, many years ago. We're probably talking about a decade ago. And I hired Greg onto my team as a sales guy. Now, I have my own way of selling. You know, I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a lot more kind of, you know, a lot more easier, you know. So the misconception that I had was everyone has to be like me. You know, if you're selling to someone, this is the right way to do it. That's the right way to do it. You know, that's obviously what I thought. When I hired Greg, you know, lovely character, a ball of energy. I think you've met him, right? You've met
Yeah.
You met Greg. And he's a ball of energy, right? So the first conference that we went to, and we were speaking with clients, you know, he was acting, you know, in a very jokingly way, you know, I mean, borderline kind of immature, right? What I thought. And, you know, as kind of the weeks went on, the months went on, you know, I mean, this guy was closing deals right, left and center. And initially I was embarrassed of him. I was thinking, oh my God, like you're embarrassing me. You're behaving like a child, you know, you're turning everything into a joke. But what I didn't realize was the clients loved that. I mean, we were working in the oil and gas industry, right? So, you know, everyone, you can imagine it's a serious business. But all of a sudden you've got this young kid and he's laughing about and he's joking around and they love being in his company. And so he built relationships in that jokingly way, but he became best friends with everyone because, you know, he was like the joker that came to their stand or came to see them, you know, and they loved that. And that's when I realized to myself, actually, you know what, it's not just the way I think it, it's the way other people perceive it, you know? So that kind of, you know, understanding these things as you go along is hugely beneficial to yourself as well. And that's kind of personal growth, but you have to be open to learn that as well. You can't go in saying, right, okay, this is what it has to be. This is the way you do it. And, you know, if you're too stringent, then it doesn't work. So essentially, a very, very core piece of advice of personal growth is be open-minded. Don't walk around, if you've got a God complex, dump it and take it in.
Just in the chat box, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, just a yes or no. Anyone been guilty of that in the past? I'm a yes. I know I'm a yes for sure.
Yeah,
anyone else?
Yeah,
let's just see in the chat box. You drop a yes or a no if you've been guilty of having an element of God complex.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is that it's a very hard one to deal with, because as you become better in business, as you become good at your own craft, you know, look, there is a difference between, I know they say there's a difference obviously naturally between confidence and arrogance, you know, but that thin line between the two is God complex. That's what it is. That thin line in between the two is God complex. And really understanding actually how to manage that is very, very clear. But yeah, I mean, it's great. I mean, you can see that There are people who are in the same boat as me, same boat as you, you know, but managing it is hugely important.
So earlier on, before we started the event, you know, I asked the question, what does everyone want to get out of today? And there were a lot of people talking about, you know, I want to connect to investors, I want to connect to new clients, I want to grow what I'm doing, X, Y, Z. So in your experience, you, like I said, you've connected with the likes of Rolls-Royce, Roger Dubuis, Chivas Regal, and senior people in these businesses. How does someone go about connecting from a cold start with a big brand name, with a big investor, with a big target client? How does someone do that?
If I may, and excuse my French, but have balls. You know, and I know it sounds silly, and I know it sounds cliche, but have the balls to do it, you know. And let me explain what I mean. So when I say, you know, have the tenacity, have the drive to go and do it. So again, a little story. The founder of ebookers.com, you know, is a good
someone
friend.
you know,
someone that I personally know. He's of an older generation, so he's kind of our parents' age, you know, but a really lovely guy. He started the business here in the UK. When he came to exit the business, the maximum, absolute maximum he was getting was 50-60 million pounds, right? And you know, he knew his business was worth more than that. Cut a long story short, he sold it to a company in America, which they bought it for $430 million.
Wow.
Right? So, I mean, that's a different story, but what this guy said to me, and this has always stuck with me, and he always said to me, if there is the smallest chance of failure, yeah, if the smallest chance of failure, most people won't even try. And that, for me, was literally the penny drop moment. That was the penny drop moment, because he said, most people, if I said to you, Kooks, tomorrow, I want to do something with Virgin.
Okay.
Do me a favor. Can you get onto Richard Branson?
Right.
Can you jump on a call or get Richard Branson on a call?
Yeah.
Chances of success are very, very slim.
Yeah.
So most people, chances are you won't even try. Most people wouldn't even try. Some of our biggest deals have come from asking, literally asking.
It's so simple, isn't it?
It sounds silly. But asking, and actually, and I, you know, obviously, you know, Kooks, you know, we're both fathers of girls. I teach my girls, my eldest daughter is 15 and my youngest is 10, and I teach them both. I teach them one thing: if you want something, ask. You've got to ask. You know that tenacity. Of course, there's a process in between. You've got to get to that person first. Right? But you know, nothing is impossible. I've worked with, when we first launched Asian Wealth 10 years ago, I remember working with this young guy, and I forget his name, excuse me, but he did this huge conference with Richard Branson. And when I sat down with him and I had a conversation, and I said, you know, how the hell did you get hold of, you know, Richard Branson? And he goes, I called their office. That was it. That was like literally, yeah, I called their office. Do you see what I mean? So it's you know, it's very much, you know, some people, you've got to remember, everyone is just human. Everyone is just human. You know, we've obviously worked with different brands and different people. You know, I mean, you have to believe, number one, you look, again, the psychological part, you have to believe in what you're doing. You know, everyone suffers from some level of imposter syndrome. I get that, you know, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to bank on yourself. If you don't bank on yourself, that investor or that client that you're trying to get to, they're not going to believe you. But you have to have that tenacity to, you know what, nothing's off limits.
Yeah.
Nothing is off limits. And that is, in that mentality, I've portrayed into my team as well. And that's given us the outlet to work with some of the brands that you previously mentioned. You know, with our platform, we've worked with those brands. Why? Because, you know, we go in with a, you know, a yes attitude. No doesn't exist in our vocabulary. So you've got to have, going back, you've got to have the balls to do it. Don't be scared of it.
So there's a couple of really interesting questions that I think I'd like to save toward the end. So Andrew's asked what your strategy is for using LinkedIn to build a network and find new work. People buying from people. It doesn't mean that. Oh, that's gone. There's a couple of really good questions, which everyone, I'm making note of this. We are going to go through it at the end of the presentation. So KP, I suppose the kind of last question from me is, if you were to share one tip, one hard-hitting power tip with everyone to take home today to write down, what would that tip be to kind of, supercharge their little black book?
Yeah, it's a great question. And if I had to give one tip and to start off with one word, it's listen. Listen. I mean, it's the biggest thing which I have learned over the years. Can
you expand on it a bit more? Because
of course,
I suspect a lot of people might think, well, I listen.
No, people don't listen. People don't listen. So look, I've been in networking rooms. I've been, I meet people. The biggest problem that I face, right, when I meet people and the networking is, I probably speak 10% of the time. They're speaking to me 90% of the time. And I appreciate, I understand, okay, look, they're trying to, tell me what they're doing, or they're trying to get something across or something like that. But once that person's left, 60 seconds later, you've forgotten about that person in the greatest respect, right? Because all they've done is talk at you.
Talk at you.
Talk at you.
Yeah.
It's not a conversation, it's talk at you. The biggest thing is to listen. Listen what that person, is doing. When I speak to people, I'm interested, and I'm truly interested. I'm truly interested. When I speak to you, Cooks, I'm interested in about what the family is doing, what your business is doing, how your daughters are, how your missus is, how, I'm interested in this stuff. But what happens when I walk away, you're going to remember me. Not only are you going to remember me, but I'm going to have more insight on you than the other 2 or 3 Joe blogs that came to speak to you before. That listening is so imperative, because everything comes from that. Even when you're speaking to clients, there is no point, from our media point of view, there is no point speaking to a client and telling them we do this and we do that and we do that if they're looking for something else. Do you see what I mean? So it's that listening is a huge part of it. And by default, I guess, in the world that we're in, a lot of us don't do that enough, but it's the greatest skill to have and develop. If you're not good at it, develop it. That's the one huge piece of advice that I would give. I mean, obviously there's a whole lot, but listening is definitely one.
Well, I've just shared a link to a book in the chat box called Never Split the Difference. And I love that one piece of advice, because I know personally how powerful it is. I actually went to a course being held by a hostage negotiator, and he was a hostage negotiator with Scotland Yard for 30 years, and all he talked about was listening, active listening, different types of listening. And he just talked about how powerful it was, because in conversation, people, they give away so much without even knowing it when they're speaking. And the more skill you develop in asking the right types of questions, the more people reveal, and it just empowers you to, you talk about earlier building relationships. It empowers you to build relationships with that person. So yeah, I put that in the chat box. If anyone's a reader or a listener, Never Split the Difference, I think it's called. It's a guy who's a hostage negotiator with, I think, the FBI for like 30 odd years, and it's an insanely powerful book, really good. So look, those of you who may or may not know, KP, he owns several businesses. One of them is Asian Wealth Magazine. They've got a media business, but the newest, most exciting business, I'm a member of it myself, is a business called Foundxrs Club. So how does networking, the power of networking, and everything that we've talked about now, how does that manifest itself into the Founders Club, and what is it all about?
Sure. So look, Founders Club, we launched last year, summer of last year, which again, few people said to us, you're launching something, you know, in the pandemic, you know, again, goes back to my, you know, no holds barred attitude, just go for it. We launched this in the summer of last year. For those of you who don't know, we have, as Cooks mentioned, Asian Wealth, which is a media platform. For a number of years, it was a magazine until we dropped the print edition in 2018. And then from there, it went on to digital, everything digital, and we did private events. With the Founders Club, it was essentially set up from a need of having something like this. So look, over the last 10 years, one thing that we have built up is this amazing pool of people, creative people, high net worths, you know, entrepreneurs, business professionals, you know, just good humans, you know, just good people. That's, you know, we've created this wonderful pool. But, you know, when Sonny and I sat down, it was very much, okay, well, look, we can't help every single business. We can't help every single person. So then we looked at it, and I know that obviously you're going to talk about this, but Sonny and I had been on obviously business coaching, you know, with you guys for 2 years. So we looked at things in a different way, and it was very much, okay, well, look, those who know us will know that we are good time guys, right? We know how to chink a few glasses and throw a party, and we know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna applaud that, because your party's incredible.
Thank you, bless you. But look, I mean, that's great at the end of the night or an evening. But what's beyond that? And that was the question. You know, when Sonny and I sat down and we said, look, what's beyond that? How do we help businesses go from small to medium to large to exit? And then very importantly, what happens after you exit your business? Because that plan of retiring and doing gardening on a Monday and doing DIY on a Tuesday, spending Wednesday in the gym, you know, those things don't really exist. So what happens after you exit it's a huge part of it. And how do we help people grow, not just from a business point, but from a personal point? How do we help and teach, you know, I guess, entrepreneurs and business owners to become better humans? Now, look, I've been a member of different clubs over the years, you know, and there's always been a few things that I didn't like, I didn't enjoy, and I thought to myself, actually, you know what, if we can't find what we're looking for, you know, let's create our club, you know. And so we've created this hub, we've created this ecosystem of like-minded people who essentially are driven by goals to achieve. You know, that is essentially what we have created. And this club, it's an ecosystem of you know, entrepreneurs in different industries, you know, lots of different caliber of people, but essentially just good humans. And our goal essentially is to say, right, okay, how do we help these people get from one place to the next, but at the same time network. And so look, when we asked our members the question, you know, what's a key thing you'd like to get out from the club? And everyone says, you know, I would like to network with like-minded people. That's what the answer was. So our job was to then go back and really analyze that and say, okay, well, what does that mean? What does, you know, I want to network with like-minded people. What does that mean? That means you want to build relationships with people. You want to build relationships with clients, with investors, with people you just enjoy the company of. You know, these things. So our job is then to create, you know, deliverables, events and dinners and experiences, which enables our members to actually then enjoy one another's company and build on that, you know. So that is, you know, that's kind of a key part of it. But again, you know, look, you have to have something bigger. There has to be something bigger. And there's a couple of sharings in the club that we always talk about, and we say, look, our job is to make our members' businesses successful, not just profitable. The difference between a profitable business and a successful business, and I'm sure you'll touch on this, right, Kooks? But a profitable business is when you make money, when you're making profit. A successful business is when that happens without you. That is a core. That's what everyone wants to get to. That's a successful business. You could be making millions and millions of pounds in profit, but if a business doesn't run without you, it's not a successful business. So our job is to help curate, the club, and help curate kind of plans for our members to kind of understand and learn this. We've got patron members in the club, some amazing people who, some of them, well, we've got Michelin star chef who's a patron member. We've got a couple of people who've exited their business at, 3, 4, 500 million. So they know how to, scale up a business and exit. So these people sit in the club essentially to give strategic advice, to give, a mentorship, to provide connections, to do all of this stuff essentially, and that's why we built this club, we set up this club, and now, this is the lion's share of what we do, the Founders Club. So look, I mean, I don't want to talk huge amounts about it, but I'm more than happy to, if any, I know there's a whole bunch of members who are already on this call, but if you're not a member and you're interested in, then please do, drop Kooks a message or me a message, or connect with us on Instagram, DM us, be more than happy to jump on a call with you.
I have to admit, I was gutted to miss the whiskey tasting event last week, Thursday.
I know.
Because there were some great people going, and then also actually being able to go to an event like that after 2 years of lockdown was
I know. And look, I mean, again, even me, I will learn things as we go along. So I know there's a couple of people on this who were at the whiskey tasting last week with Singh, and I never knew Sukhinder 15 years ago was the one who introduced Japanese whiskey into the UK.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I had no idea. Suntory, who owned Yamazaki, and they came to him and said, look, we want to bring our product to the UK. How do we do it? And then he told us a story of the difficulties that he had introducing Japanese whiskey into the UK. Because people laughed 15 years ago. People laughed, saying that, oh, what do you mean? Scotch is from Scotland, or you have Irish whiskey. What are you talking about, Japanese whiskey? So he talks about the difficulties that he had, and now so he was the one who brought essentially Japanese whiskey to the UK. But again, something I learned. So that whole kind of learning process is essential.
Well, KP, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
If we were in a real world environment, I would go for a round of applause for everyone.
Bless you.
But thank you so much. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen and go into the business component of this event. So just bear with me 1 second. Can you see that all right? KB, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clear. Bear with me 1 second, just make it a little bit bigger. Welcome to this part of the event. A number of you may have seen this presentation before. If you have, stick with it. There's always something new to learn and always something that we forget. And as always, please make sure you're taking notes. Write down your thoughts, because you will forget 95% of whatever we're going through today unless you write it down. And the whole purpose of today is for you to go away, take action, and have some growth in your business and in your personal life from this. And today is certainly all about you. So KP's told us, he shared with us so much about networking. He shared with us about the Founders Club, what that's about, and why it's such a powerful space and why it's needed in this day and age. But KP, can you tell us your story? Tell us about you and kind of how you got to today, and yeah, just share with us about you so everyone knows a little bit more about you outside of what you've shared so far.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, I started 15 years ago, and before that I've always been in publishing for many moons. As I mentioned previously, I was in the oil and gas industry, and I used to publish magazines for that industry. We launched Asian Wealth 10 years ago. And initially, I got the concept wrong. I honestly thought Asian Wealth, our clients would be Tilda Rice and Mr. Patel's accountancy firm down the road. That's what I, initially thought. But in the first 12 months, we were very, very, very lucky because a lot of big brands were using this process called experimental marketing. So brands like Cartier would have their global campaigns, but then what they were doing, they were tapping into niche markets, whether trying to tap into the Asian market, the Indian market, the Russian market, Jewish market, markets where they've got big spending power. And when it came to the Asian, when I say Asian, I'm talking South Asian aligned, I'm talking, British Asian. So when it came to the British Asians, we were the only ones who were positioned in a bracket which they took interest in. So what we did over the first 12 months, we maneuvered, we organically restructured our brand, our presence to fit with our clients' expectations, to fit with what they needed, and that again, is a very important lesson to kind of learn. And it was for us as well, So in the first 12 months we did that, and we grew the product, we grew the brand. 2018, we dropped the print edition of the magazine, and only because, and I'm sure everyone will know this, that 10 years ago, I think probably not even that, maybe 5 years ago, you jump on a train at rush hour, everyone, probably 90% of the carriage had a Metro paper in their hand. Now jump on at rush hour, and I mean, I'd be surprised if you saw a copy of the Metro, because everyone is essentially on this, right? Everyone is on their phones or tablets or whatever it may be, So our clients were saying, look, we love working with you, we want to carry on, but we are pushing more towards digital. So we dropped the print edition, moved very much into private events, everything digital, and then obviously last year, as I mentioned, we launched Foundxrs Club, which is our sister company. My brother looks after Capital 36, which is the property and real estate arm of our business, which looks at developments and investment in property and real estate. So Sonny looks after that division of the business. I look after the media side of the business. So, but I dip my toe into his world and he dips his toe into my world. So we are, working harmoniously together, but in different divisions of the business. So I know it's very kind of professional and I guess very kind of, business orientated, but I hope that kind of gives everyone.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. And you talked about personal growth and always being open to new ideas. I know obviously, when I was getting coaching, business coaching, obviously I told you guys about it. And you said some really interesting things to me earlier this week about that whole experience. Do you want to just share with everyone how that kind of helped shape what you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, and again, this kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier about God complex and whatnot. So, for a number of years, we walked around with a God complex. We know it all. I know it all. We've been doing this for years, and that is the worst line you can ever use. Oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing this for 20 years. What has that got to do with anything, right? So what happens a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, when the industry was going through this huge change. So media a few years ago was magazines and newspapers. Media today is social media and influencers, right? So our whole business model was turned upside down, right? So, and it really, it gave me a real big kind of kick up the arse to say, well, hold on, I'm nervous because all I've known for the last decade plus is traditional publishing magazines. So, it really kind of brought me back down to ground and I opened my eyes and I was very, very open to trying different things, So obviously we started this, Sonny and I both, we started business coaching. And initially, and obviously so you introduced me to Parag at one of the events, Shaz's events, right?
Yeah,
and
that's right, that's right.
and you know, it was interesting because I'd never thought of business coaching, because again, I'd been doing it for 10, 12 years. I thought, what could I know? What would I know? The first session that Sonny and I went to, and session 1, vividly remember, Sonny and I walked out and we looked at each other, and pardon my French and excuse me for this, but we looked at each other and we said, oh shit, how do we not know this? How did we not implement it? So there was a lot of stuff which Sonny's done an IT degree, my degree's in marketing. So, you know, the theory of this stuff we had already done. We'd implemented some of the stuff over the last decade, but there were so many things that we had just overlooked, or we hadn't done, or we'd forgotten about. And it was just that first session that we looked at each other as we left, and we just smiled and we said, shit, how do we get it so wrong? How do we not do this? How are we not doing this? And it wasn't rocket science. It was just the fact of, we know it, we've forgotten about it, and importantly, we haven't implemented it. And that was kind of the key part of it. That was really the kind of eye-opener for us.
Do you think it's helped you run things differently now, I'm assuming, with Foundxrs Club and everything?
Yeah, you know,
right?
Look, yeah, absolutely. Look, you know, surrounding yourself with different people, getting the advice from different people, speaking to different people will always, you know, push you. Will always push you. If you're willing to be pushed, if you're willing to grow, it will definitely do that 100%. It will kind of push your boundaries. Has it helped up? Yes, but there's two very, very important things. It's with everything, right? So it's listening and understanding and learning. And then number 2 is implementation. And this is where, you know, if I'm being honest, you know, Sonny's been a lot better at than I have, because he's the analytical, strategic one in the business, right? So what we learned, I have implemented some stuff, but I struggle with implementation on some stuff. With Sonny, it's, you know, very much implementation. So understanding, learning, growing, and then implementation. Two parts go hand in hand. They don't work without each other.
No, it's so true, so true. Thank you again for kind of sharing your story and those insights.
Anytime.
So my story, I'll be very, very quick. And the reason I'm going to share with you what I'm about to share is just, it's not like a show-off thing. It's just to give you some reasoning as to why I've got the right to sit here and talk about business. Why listen to me, and just to give you some context as to who I am and what I do. So my name is Kuldip Singh Sahota. Most people I know call me Kooks. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I own 3 businesses, and I'm actually a full-time business coach. I own a bonsai tree called Mr Miyagi. That's him back there. He's doing very well. Yeah, my background is, after a very short career in the city as a stockbroker, my first business was actually with KP's brother, with Sonny, and it was building 152 apartments out in Baroda in Gujarat in India. I didn't speak the language, never been there before. It was a £6 million development, and we bought 5.6 acres of land and decided we're going to build this apartment complex, which we did. It was an incredible experience, but as the business was starting to grow, something else was growing, which was my family business. So I sold my stake in the property business to set up and push forward with my family business called Mr Singhs. Now, Mr Singhs, we made chili sauces in our garden shed. So the image that you see on the right is my dad. It's his chili sauce, and yeah, we started making this chili sauce in our garden shed. We used to wash the chilies in our bathtub. We used to be up at 4 a.m. Buying them from Spitalfields Market. And our story basically caught fire. It went viral. It was picked up by the press, and we ended up being on TV with our story. And very, very quickly, the business started to grow. It was exciting. We were in the BBC website. We were on TV. We were in the radio. We were in all the newspapers, the Telegraph, Mail on Sunday, the the tabloids, anywhere you could turn, basically, Mr Singhs was there. And we were growing fast. We supplied the likes of Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Ocado. We were exporting. We were in Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, and we were doing some online sales at the time. It was a very exciting time. We were exporting to Africa, to South Africa, I think, to New York. And I even attracted angel investors into the business. We did crowdfunding. And it was just scale. It was growth. It was a very exciting time. But very quickly I realized I hated it. And the reason I hated it is because I was no longer enjoying it. To tell the truth, I didn't know what I was doing. We seemed to be getting something right because we were getting all this growth and all this success. But if you see that image on the left-hand side, it says 10:17 p.m. in London, and this is how we spend our Saturday night and weekend. I celebrated this crazy mindset of working, 24/7 and burning myself out. My boss was a lunatic, i.e. me. I was a lunatic. It was 18-hour days, no social life, my health getting affected. It was very stressful. I felt I was extremely underpaid. Most importantly, if I did not work, I did not get paid, which was huge for me. And I just had this kind of like hustler mindset that you have to be working all the time. And, the image in the middle is our old living room that we used to use as a storeroom. And so, I got introduced to coaching by a really close friend of both of ours, Shaz. I think he's on this call as well. And similar to KP, the first time I went to a coaching session, I went in with the mindset of, this guy knows nothing. I'm not going to learn anything. What do they know? They're not in business. After my first session, on the way home, I booked my first 7-day holiday in 7 years. I called Amma, my wife, and I said to her, we're going on holiday. I'm not taking my laptop with me. I'm not taking my phone with me. And we're just going to be us. And we're going to take some time to breathe. And it was such a mind shift for my life that it actually transformed my life completely. And so, long story short, as of today, I'm now a qualified business coach. And the reason I do it is because I want to help people have the same transformations that I did. I want to help people who are in that mindset or in that mode of just constantly having to work, struggling, facing constant challenges, and learn how to build a business, because that's what I didn't know. And like I said earlier, I've got 3 businesses that I still own and my team runs for me. So I'm living, breathing proof that this stuff does work if you're open-minded enough to start applying the lessons that we share. So please, everyone, please take notes. I'm going to keep saying this to you, because if you don't, you're going to forget everything that we cover. So before I start, just in the chat box, does anyone know the story of Roger Bannister? If you do know the story and you've been to one of these before, please don't share it just yet. But does anyone know the story of Roger Bannister? Just a yes or a no in the chat box, please. Let's have a look. Yes, no, no, yes, no, 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 no. Okay, perfect. So Roger Bannister, Google it in your own time. Roger Bannister is the first athlete in 1954 to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Okay, so he ran a mile in less than 4 minutes. So just let that sink in. Up until 1954, the 1,000 years before that, in recorded history, no one had managed to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. It was thought to be humanly impossible. Roger Bannister turns up and he does it. Now, obviously this is incredible, but it's not the most incredible thing. The most incredible thing is that the record lasted 46 days and then someone else did it. Right? So let's just bear that in mind. 1,000 years up until 1954, no one's done it. 1954, Roger Bannister does it. 46 days later, someone else does it. Since then, thousands of people have done it. How can this be? How can this possibly happen? And the only answer is that there was a paradigm shift in people's mindsets. What was previously thought to be impossible became possible. Okay, so what was previously thought to be impossible now became possible because someone else had done it. And so the reason I'm sharing this story with you is the only way that you're going to create change in yourselves is to have paradigm shifts in your mind to know that what was previously impossible is possible today. And that's what drove change in me and KP, to know that a different way is possible. So this is a principle we coach called the identity iceberg. So this iceberg is you and what drives change in you. Typically, we start above the water. So we start with maybe some of the behaviors we have. Maybe you're a bit of an angry person, or you're a bit aloof, or maybe you might be a little bit lazy, but you start to work on that and you make changes. Your decisions contribute to changing who you are and the actions that you take. But the true, meaningful, powerful change really starts to happen below the surface, below the waterline, i.e. inside and deep inside us. You know, it starts with, as you can see in the presentation, skills. You know, if, for example, we're talking about networking and KP shared with us the skill of listening. If at the moment you think perhaps you're not a great listener, or even if you think you are a listener, how can you acquire new skills to become a truly great and phenomenal listener? Maybe you can read a book, maybe you can go to a course, but you can still develop your skill to become a great listener. You know, what are your belief systems? Now, what a belief system is, can be, for example, you know, you might believe that that client you want is impossible to get. The Richard Branson story, KP, you shared earlier. You know, if KP came to me and I believed that it was impossible for me to try and get through to Richard Branson, I would never do it. But if I believe it's possible, somehow, hook or crook, I will do it. So you may have a belief system about sales. You may think that sales is below you. People should come to you for your service because it's so great. They should come to you because you're so great. But maybe it's worth looking at that belief system and revisiting what you think about sales. Because if you're struggling with sales, it could be you. You need to look at your beliefs. So what are your values? Same thing. The identity is very important, very powerful. What are your I am statements? You know, I coach a lot of architects, and the identity they have is that I am an architect. So if you're if you're trained for 7 years to be an architect and then you come out and you're an architect, that's all you're going to do. But if you change your identity to I am a business owner, I am an entrepreneur, then starts to make you think and act differently. And it makes you do different things to start to deliver the goals that you might have and the dreams that you have in your life. And so the I am statements are very powerful. Affirmations, you know, write down your affirmations. I am great at what I do. I am successful. I am wealthy. Whatever your goals are. I am happy. I am loved. You know, you can go very, very deep into very personal issues to do with identity. But there's an additional 5%. The 5% is what can change you literally overnight. And actually, we're all doing it right here, right now. But just in the chat box, what does everyone think the last 5% is? And again, if you've done this before, please don't share the answer just yet. What does everyone else think the last 5% is? Answers in the chat box, please. No answers. Passion, action, doing it, tenacity, okay? Being successful. Can you change being successful? Can you control your tenacity? Yeah, mindset. Okay, great. Look, there's some fantastic answers there, and they're all right to an extent, but what we're looking for is the environment. This is going to change you and everything that you do overnight. So what do I mean by your environment? The environment changes overnight, and that is you taking time out of your day to be here today, to be surrounded by like-minded people, to be exposed to information that KP is sharing, is changing your environment. You're not going to be around the people that you're usually around. You're in a different environment. You know, your environment is also perhaps the books that you read, the knowledge that you're taking in. That contributes to your environment. Your friends, your family. Do these people support you? Do they always question you on anything new that you're trying? Perhaps even the people you work with, your business partners. Do you ever feel that you're being held back or pushed too far? You know, the minute you start to take control of your environment, the minute you start to change who you are surrounded with, surrounded by, and the knowledge and the information that you're exposed to, it has an instant impact on you. It's just like your Instagram feed. You know, if you're on Instagram and all you see is, I don't know, negative news, then that's all you're going to be feeding your mind, and that's your environment. But if you start to see positivity and motivation and successful people that you aspire to learn from, then that's what you will become as well. And KP, just to have you add to this, how much would you say, you're from a similar background to myself, like I grew up in quite a rough part of East London, you're from Croydon, and changing your environment, both physically and mentally, how do you think that has affected you and what you've achieved so far in life?
So look, the environment is everything. And I think, again, a bit of a cliche, but people say, you are the sixth person of the 5 people you hang around, right? So, if you hang, and I say that to my daughter now, if you hang around with, 5 people who smoke, guess what you're going to become? If you hang around with 5 people who do this, guess what you're going to become? So the environment of your surrounding is so important. But the environment, also learning from that environment as well. Just being in the environment is not something, it has to be something bigger than that. Both Sonny and I, we spend a lot of time with hugely successful people. But not just because we enjoy their company, it's because, they teach us stuff that they don't even know they're teaching us. Sonny and I, we meet up with one of our mentors, and unfortunately it's only once a year. We always take him out for lunch or dinner or something like that. Hugely successful. And he just tells us stories. He just talks to us about what he's doing, his stories, his backstories, and he doesn't realize that the nuggets of information that he's giving us, it inspires us, it makes us think differently, So that kind of environment, is so important,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, everyone, again, I'll repeat, please take notes of this. Please take your screenshot or whatever you need to take this away with you. Especially the stuff below the waterline, the 75% and the 5%. What can you start working on to change your environment, to change your life overnight, right here, right now? So typically when I'm speaking to people about business, sometimes I come across people and they start talking about, oh, that won't apply to me in my business, that won't apply to me in my industry. But the truth is, all entrepreneurs, all business owners face areas of pain that are very similar, and they are as follows: time, pressure, time, pain. So if you're firefighting all the time, you'll find that you've got very little time because all you're doing is solving other people's problems, as well as new problems that are arising in your business. Team pain, so finding the right types of people, or if you then find people, training them up and having them deliver, oh, I can't find the right staff, XYZ. But this is a typical area of pain that we have as a common occurrence. Money pain, so whether it's cash flow, access to investors, people paying you on time, you paying people on time. This is a common pain area that entrepreneurs and business people go through. And the fourth one that's not actually here is marketing pain. So that is actually lead generation and people being aware of who you are. And today, what we're going to cover slightly later on is the money pain. But these are all 4 common areas that most business owners face, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. So I just wanted to raise some awareness for you about those areas in your own businesses that you might want to take a note of and look at, because sometimes it can all blend together. So answers in the chat box, please. What is your definition of a business? Let's just have a look at what people think a business is. Let's have a look. Profitable. Jazz Barra is saying profitable. What else? What else? What is a business? Great products. Customer service. These are all things that come from a business, but what is a business? What is a definition of a business? Something that delivers something of value that people buy, providing services or goods that people pay for, clients, exchange, longevity. For us, it's culture the customers can be a part of. Pav Johal. Okay, 1 or 2 more. Helps people. Okay, so these are all good answers. For us, and again, please make a note of this answer. For us, for me, for KP, this is a definition of a business: a commercial and profitable enterprise which works without you. So you can call up your office tomorrow and you can say, I'm not coming in for 6 months, and the business will continue to work without you. It will continue to thrive and grow without you. And it's a commercial and profitable enterprise which works without you. That is what a true business is. And if you remember earlier when I was talking about Mr Singhs, that is what I did not have. I did not have a commercial and profitable enterprise which worked without me. I had a profitable enterprise, but if I wasn't there, that business was no longer going to be around. So it's very important that you make this clear definition in what your business is and what you want to try and achieve. Whether you're a solo practitioner or someone who's got a big business, this is actually what a business is. What if you are the business, Georgie? If you are the business, that's okay. At the moment, you are going to be the business because you're the only person in it. But the idea is that you build your business to become a commercial and profitable enterprise that works without you. And it's something that we coach on extensively. And obviously, there's a lot of information out there on how to build a business, but it's what we coach on and help people get to. And obviously, what KP was talking about earlier in terms of the Foundxrs Club. And just talking about business coaching, obviously, KP and I have both been through this and being open-minded enough. A business coach is that unreasonable friend who holds you accountable. You know, you can lie to yourself, you can lie to other people sometimes why things are not happening. But if you write down a goal and someone holds you accountable to it, because oftentimes when you're the business owner, you're at the top of the food chain. No one's going to ask you why. But actually, when you're at that point, it's exactly the right time to have someone ask you why. And that's what a business coach is. And also, it's not someone that's like your mate or your partner or someone that you on occasion get to. It's someone that's going to consistently be there for you. Yeah, Germs, this is my challenge as well. It takes time, don't get me wrong. To build a commercial and profitable enterprise that works without you takes time. And finally, is coaching, is mentorship, is growth right for you? If you're a I know type of person, yeah, but I've been doing it for 10 years, then probably not. You've got all the answers that you want. This type of thing is not for you. However, if you're open-minded, if you're about go on, I'm listening, that sounds interesting, you've got a growth mindset, then potentially coaching, mentorship, members clubs, this type of thing could be right for you. So I'll quickly whiz through just our system and what we coach on and what I've been through, KP's been through in terms of what it takes to build a business. The ground level is mastery, so eliminating chaos in your business. We want to then create predictable cash flow. We then build efficiencies in your business so it can start to work without you. And then we build a structure for growth. So Georgie, you were saying earlier, you're a single person in the business. It's at this stage that we start to look at structuring for growth. We then get what we've got and turn it into a well-oiled machine. So it starts to work even more without you. Excellent training, general managers, and so on. And then it's onto the personal growth, all new business for you as the owner. But ultimately, it's massive results, time, team, money. Anyone who stays on coaching program, we've got data to back. I believe they see 38% year-on-year growth on their business, which is huge. So for my part, this is the biggie. This is the one, if you're going to write anything down, this is the section you want to write down the information from. So take notes. You're definitely going to want to write this down. And these are the 5 key metrics you need to be looking at in your business to make changes overnight, increase profits overnight, and just take yourself to that next level. So these are the 5 ways to increase your business profits. The number of leads, the conversion rate. Oh, what's going on here? The number of transactions, the average pound or sale value, and your margins. So just before I continue, let me ask you all, what do you think are the differences between the items in white text and the items in yellow text? What's the key difference? Just answers in the chat box, please. What are the differences between the white text and the yellow text? Just 1 or 2 answers. So let's just see where everyone's minds are at. Yellow are the results. We've got the A-star students in the class today. Well done. Correct. Yellows are the results. They are the outcomes. What you control are the items in the white text. Don't worry about the number of customers. Don't worry about the turnover. Don't worry about the profits. You can control the number of leads, the conversion rate, the number of transactions, average pound value, and the margin. And these are the 5 key metrics you need to be on top of. The first time I saw this, I had no idea that these metrics even existed. Well, aside from profit, I had no idea. And I had to actually dive back into my business to try and understand what it was and then start monitoring moving forward. So if you've never seen this before, if you're not currently measuring and testing these items, it's okay. I'm putting it on your radar today for that exact reason. So please make note of this. So let's just do a little exercise with real numbers. So we've got a business here and it generates 4,000 leads a year. So 4,000 people are interested in this business. Of those 4,000 people, 25% convert into customers, right? So we've got 1,000 customers in this business. They've chosen to spend some money with us. Every year, those 1,000 customers buy from us 2 times. And each time they spend £100 with us, which means we've got a turnover of £200,000. Okay, so 4,000 leads, 25% conversion rate gives us 1,000 customers. They buy from us twice, spending £100 each time, £200,000 turnover. We're currently working on a 25% profit margin, which means this business makes a £50,000 profit. Fantastic. Now, this is why these 5 metrics are so important, okay? What would a 10% increase in all of the areas give you? So the number of leads, oh, what's going on? The number of leads, if we increase it by 10%, it takes us to 4,400, yeah? The conversion rate, if we work on the conversion rate, sorry, 1 second. Yeah, if we work on the conversion rate, it's 27.5%. But you'll notice the number of customers is not 10% increase. It's not 1,100, it goes to 1,210 because we've compounded our results. It's 4,400 times 27.5%. Let's say we do the same thing, 10% increase on the number of transactions. So someone does business with us 2.2 times a year, and rather than spending £100, they now spend £110. Answers in the chat box. Let's see who's good at math or who's following along. What does that do to our turnover? Any ideas on what the numbers are for the turnover? Let's have a look. Who thinks it's 220,000? Yes or no? 133K. It drops, Simeon? Hopefully it doesn't drop. Anyone else? 242 292,820. Got some maths whiz in the house. Correct. 292,820. Remember, we're compounding. We're compounding small micro 10% increases across the year. So remember, our number of leads, 4,400. Conversion rate is now 27.5%. The number of transactions, 2.2. Average sale value, 110. All these numbers are compounding, and you can now see the turnover has gone from 200,000 to 292,000. What happens if that same exercise is applied to our profit margins? We're now no longer making £50,000 profit in this business. We're making £80,000 profit in this business. And all we've done is, because we're measuring our metrics, we've increased them by 10% over the course of a year, and we're looking at £80,000 additional profit. So that's an increase of 46% turnover, and it's an increase of 61% profit in your business. Now, of course, look, this is an example. It's not as straightforward in real life. It takes work, effort, and energy. Everything always does. But the point is, if you're measuring these 5 metrics, you're going to be increasing the revenues in your business, the turnover in your business, and the profits in your business. So it's critical that you start looking at them. So which should we tackle first? This is always a really interesting exercise for me, and I love doing it. Answers in the chat box. Which should we tackle first? Let's have a look. What does everyone think? Number of leads. Liz is saying margin. Margarita is saying leads or conversion. Average sale. Sebastian saying. Any others? Margin to invest. Conversion rate. Anjali. Profit. Sales. Okay. So look, if we want to increase the profits in our business overnight and we want to level up our business straight away, the first thing that we work on is our margin. Now, that can be in many ways. Oftentimes, again, I'll use the architects as an example. People don't actually know their correct profit margin. They think I'm roughly making 30%, but when you start looking at the details, you might only be making 20%. So for you to go from 20% to 22% profit is a great start. So the first thing that you want to look at is your profit margin. And how can you improve your profit margin? And if it's great, how can you increase your profit margin? And it could just be as simple as putting up your prices by 10%. The second element we want to work on is conversion rate. So KP, you and I were talking about this the other day, right? The conversion rate for Foundxrs Club. And how it's so important for you, because you're getting a bunch of leads and loads of interest of people wanting to join the Foundxrs Club. But now it's like, well, how do you get the conversion rate up? So, you increase the conversion of those leads into members. Number 3 and 4 is your average sale value and the number of your transactions. And the last one that you work on is the number of leads. Why? Because the number of leads is the most expensive one. It costs you money to generate new leads. By one way or another, it's going to cost you money to generate new leads. 1 through to 4 are free. These are things that you can work on straight away. You can increase your prices straight away. You can start working on your conversion rate using a better sales method, better marketing to your existing clients, whatever it takes to improve your conversion rate. What are your guarantees? What's your unique selling point? All these little things will improve your conversion rate, your average sale value. Maybe there's a little upsell that you can offer clients. There's a great story that I've come across about a group of lawyers being presented this exercise. They're like, well, we can't increase our average sale value. But, if they were to maybe offer will writing services at the end of it, simple question, by the way, do you have a will? No, they can add on an additional service to their client just by a will writing service. And then the number of transactions that someone does with you is the 4th. Now, I know with certain industries, someone will only do business with you maybe once every 5 years, 10 years, 7 years. And that's okay. So maybe this one won't apply to you. But typically, most businesses, you can look at the number of transactions. So what happens next? You've spent time with us here today. Hopefully, you've gotten some insights and some light bulb moments. What happens next? For us, the next step is a one-to-one coaching session. There's no charge for it. It's a 45-minute session, and it's an ongoing part of this event to ensure that we address the challenges that you might be facing and you take action. That's the most important thing. It's all well and good coming to these types of events, but if you're not going to do anything with it, then it's just a waste of your an hour and a half. So what we want you to do is take action moving forward. So if anyone is interested in participating in this and taking that next step, can you just let me know in the chat box, just a yes or a no? I'll send the link when we're chatting later on for you to participate in that. Ted, yes, 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 yes. Okay, good. I'm glad everyone's taking it on. As I said, look, there's no expectations. It is genuinely the next step of this webinar for you to take action and for you to implement what you're learning. This is all about growth of your business, supercharging your business, supercharging your network, and this is the way to go about it. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, KP, you're good.
Yeah, good. I'm here.
And then yeah, KP, you've got something you wanted to add at this bit as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've dropped it into the chat anyway, but if anyone is interested in connecting and hearing more about what obviously we're doing with the club, but equally just to connect and have a chat, then, you know, do reach out to me on Instagram. I've put my the link in the chat anyway, so you can DM me, but happy to have, you know, an open chat, you know, no commitment, anything like that. So, but it'd be good to kind of get to know a bit more about some of the people on this group for sure.
So I think, look, let's open it up to some questions. I'm going to put the link for the one-to-one session in the chat box shortly as well. I'd advise everyone, please just act quickly, get this filled in. It takes less than a couple of minutes to do. Hang on, let me just do that whilst I'm talking. So the link's in the chat box now. If you're interested in taking me up on that, and I'd strongly advise you do, please, because like I said, we want you to grow, take action, take steps that are going to move you on in your business rather than just being here for the sake of some great conversation. I've also put my Instagram in the chat box as well. So if you're on IG, please follow me and stay in contact also. So yeah, let's open it up to some questions, some thoughts. What was everyone's kind of biggest takeaway from this, biggest light bulb moment? Would you mind just sharing that in the chat box? Let's have a look what everyone's saying. Tej is asking, with increasing margin, how do we do this effectively without pricing ourselves out of the market? It's a very good question. So one thing that I've learned, Tej, is especially over time, when it comes to offering your services and selling your services, what we want to concentrate on is selling the value that you offer rather than the price, right? So your pricing in the marketplace may already be top end, but how can you now either increase the value that you're adding or increase the value that you're selling or putting out into the marketplace, so that actually when someone comes across what you're offering, it seems like a bargain, because that's what we want to do. People only struggle with pricing really when they don't know the real value of what they're getting. And I suppose, you know, we talked about Rolls-Royce, that's a great example. Why would someone go out and buy a £200,000 car when they can buy a brand new car for £5,000? Because the perceived value of what they're getting for £200,000 is worth it, right? And so that's how you want to look at it, Tej, and hopefully that helps kind of answer the question. But there's also other technical things you can do, like you know, cost efficiencies and you know, maybe your sales process, your training process of your staff, efficiencies within the business. How can things be done better, quicker, cheaper, and so on, to increase your margins without really affecting the marketplace? Liz, looking at the margins first. Anyone else? What other light bulb moments? And if you're thinking it, please share it. Girish, thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you.
Girish, Emma, to develop a business model that takes me out of the equation. Yeah, that was huge for me as well, Emma. When I had that realization, my brain just blew. In fact, there's a brilliant book. I'd highly recommend you read this book if you're looking to make that transition and just get the mind right. It's called The E-Myth. So the letter E and myth, as in mythology, by Michael Gerber. Really powerful book. It takes you through the journey of being a technician, which is when you're in the job and you're doing the work, to being a manager, to being an entrepreneur. And sometimes you have to, you know, filter between the three, but eventually you get to the stage when you're the entrepreneur all of the time, and that's where we all want to get to. Realizing it's time to let go. Oh, it's just time for a holiday. Yeah, if it's time for a holiday, don't take your laptop and your work with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to scroll back through because there were a few questions people asked that we didn't get a chance to answer. What should we be looking for in a business coach? It's like a PT at the gym.
Can I just interrupt on one thing? I know Pav mentioned, it's time for a holiday. And this is, again, something which I found hugely beneficial to what I do, is that, and there may be a lot of people on this call who really struggle to switch off. I know that we say that we'll go on holiday and, I struggle to switch off because when it's your business, and sometimes I think it was Liz who mentioned, she's the only one in the business, that it's quite difficult. And something I learned and something I was taught many years ago was, if you're struggling to switch off on holiday, don't switch off. Instead of switching off, refocus those strategies, because when you're immersed in the business, you're constantly on a day-to-day basis, you're thinking about your sales, you're thinking about your team, you're thinking about, your operational stuff. You're not taking time to think about what's my plan for the next 12 months, for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and how am I going to get there? So now, I tend, pre-COVID, when we could get away, I'd find myself on the sun lounger staring at the ocean, and this is what's going through my head. I'm thinking, where do we need to be in the next 5 years? What are we not doing in the business, and how do we get there? So rather than struggling or trying to force yourself to switch off, just refocus that strategy, refocus those thoughts to something which so you're still within that kind of mind frame, but it's slightly different. So that might be a good tip for people.
Maybe it's 11:30 now. I'm okay to hang on for another 10 minutes or so for questions. Are you okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone in the chat box, if you'd like to hang on for another 10 minutes or so for some questions, feel free. If you have to go, that's understandable as well. But KP kindly happy to stay on for another 10 minutes or so. I'd also just want to add to that, KP, that like for me, I think I realized the reason I used to struggle going on holiday, or even having a break and not being able to turn off, is because it was from a place of fear. Yeah. And it was a place of, oh my God, there's so much to do and it's not been done. So let me try and do it because I'm away and I should be working. Whereas now, because there's systems, there's processes, there's my team in place. And even actually when none of that was in place and it was just me, I realized that I could actually plan for that time off and for that plan to not be working.
Sure.
And if I did that in advance, it helped my mind kind of turn off to an extent when I was on a break, and not think about the firefighting stuff, but actually have the capacity to think more about the strategic stuff, yeah. Which is quite powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you said there, Kooks, it is very important. And I think, the most powerful emotion that we all have is fear. And, we're all driven by, on some level or another, we're driven by fear. Fear of not being able to make it, fear about proving something to other people, fear about proving something to ourselves. Once you've got something, there's the fear of not losing it. So, we're all driven by that, that sense of fear, but it's just how you manage that and how you use it to the best of your ability is hugely key.
Yeah. Jazz is asking, will there be a recording? Yes, there will be a recording. I'll send it at some point later on today. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and I'll send the link out to everyone. Someone was asking earlier, how do you define your margin? It's quite a personal choice, but typically I think if you aim for 30%, that's relatively fair. If you can get 40, 50, 60%, then you're in a good place. But if you look at actually what do you want to take out of the business, how much do you want to be paid, what type of profits do you want to look at, that helps start to make the decisions on your margins, and how those margins are set in line with what your desired outcome is for the business anyway. Light bulb moment, owning a business but making it successful so that it can run without you. Think when it's your baby, you won't want to let it go. Yeah, that's true as well. Let's have a look. Any other questions? I think there was a couple of really good ones earlier, when you were talking about networking, KP. Let me just. What is your strategy for using LinkedIn to build a network and find new work? Someone asked that earlier. What are your thoughts on KP and doing that?
So LinkedIn, I have to admit, you know, I'm not the greatest person on LinkedIn. You know, I'm more on Instagram. You know, I mean, who's on Facebook these days, right? It's
my mum and dad.
Yeah, funnily enough, my mum as well. You know, it's but you know, recently we have really pushed harder on LinkedIn. There's a couple of members of my team, Adam and Chris, who are very good on LinkedIn. You know, so I really take advice from them on how we should do. We've actually enlisted a company who specializes in LinkedIn now. And
anything that you can share, that anything good or different, or any nuggets?
You know, I mean, look, LinkedIn has always been one of those platforms that it's great to reach out to people and to kind of get that initial foot in the door, you know, or put yourself on someone's radar. It's always been that kind of that. And that is, I think, something which is, you know, it's a great starting point. You know, when I was talking about networking and building relationships, this is always a great kind of point, because, you know, and I guess some of you, most of you even probably be better than I am at LinkedIn, but, you know, you can see who are your first connections or your second connections, or you know, but doing something like that is a great start for sure. It's definitely a great start for sure, you know, to build that, because building that relation naturally, you know, relationship comes second. You've got to connect with that person first. So yeah, but from what I'm seeing, it's definitely a very, very good tool for business.
Yeah, I think especially if you know how to use it.
Yeah.
KP, you mentioned your brother is the introvert and you take care of networking. I'm a solopreneur, so I have to put myself out there, but I'm an introvert. What are your best tips on getting over that and making yourself more available in person rather than just online? Great question.
Yeah, no, really, really good question. And look, I mean, so there's a couple of things here. Number one is try and find people within your circle who are a bit more, you know, a bit more of an extrovert, really, you know, and either invite them with you to come with you to some of these events, or learn from them. You know, it's very hard, because if you look at my brother will usually, you know, he will come in and he's the guy who will be quietly standing until someone speaks to him. Whereas me, it's the other way around. And I'm assuming, Ted, you know, you may be that person equally the same as Sonny. And it's you probably need more of a strategy than those extroverts. You know, Sonny will need to know when he goes to an event, he will need to know who's going, and he will always kind of look out for, right, here is 3, 4, 5 people that I definitely want to connect with while I'm there, you know. So it's a lot more strategic, as opposed to I can walk into a room and I will network in a room very, you know, openly. Whereas Sonny will be looking out for specific people and then opening a conversation. But even when you open that conversation, think about what you're going to talk about. Think about what you're going to say. Think about, you know, have these things. So those people who are more introverted, you need to have a bit more of a strategy behind you, as opposed to those who are not, you know. And these things, you know, it's a bit more harder, because you need to kind of preempt questions and preempt answers, you know. So it just needs to work a little bit harder on that. But, you know, what you will find, Tej, even though you find yourself as being a bit of an introvert, you will find as you do it more and more and more, you become a lot more comfortable with it, and equally confident with it as well. I hope that helps.
Just to add to what you've said, KP, I've just shared an article I've just found, top networking tips for introverts. But I think just to add to that, you know, like I've learned recently that questions are so powerful. And, you know, like you said, if you're prepared with questions and you've got a genuine interest in the people that you're speaking with, look at it as an opportunity to have a conversation rather than networking, you know, reposition it in your own mind so that you're able to go out and do what you need to do in that setting. So I think maybe we've got time for one more question. I'm just going to scroll back to see if there's anything else, or drop a question in the chat box. Last one. Let's have a look. Someone asked earlier, people buy from people, but does that mean we have to be friends as we are not? It seems it's disingenuous.
Yeah, I saw that question as well, and I did make a note of that. I did want to kind of touch upon that before, and that's actually a great point. The simple answer is no. You don't need to be friends with everyone. Look, the way I always look at it is I have my world, I have my orbit, and I have my universe. Your world is those people essentially in your world, you know, your family, your very close friends, the people within your day-to-day unit, you know, that's your world. Your orbit are people who are essentially your clients. You may, you know, not speak to them all the time, but, you know, they are still contacts of yours. They are still people within your orbit, essentially. And then you have people who are in your universe, and these are people who will come in and out, who will float in, float out, you know. You may liaise with them for a month or 2 months and then they're gone, you know. So understanding where people fit, whether it's your world, your orbit, or your universe is hugely important. But building relationships doesn't mean that you become, you know, best friends with everyone, you know. As a matter of fact, you know, like you said, it is disingenuous, you know, and that will come across, you know. I think, you know, in today's society, in today's world, people are very clued up. People are very, you know, knowledgeable about these things. You know, you're not there to, you know, just be your best friend, but you can be a nice guy or a nice girl. You know, you can, you know, and people want to do business with people. Yeah, and this was actually what I was going to say earlier, is that, you know, you're absolutely right. People do buy from people, and you have to build that trust. You know, if you don't like or trust a person or a brand, you are never going to buy from them, ever. And that is the core of what you need to do with your brand and your company and yourselves as well. You know, people have to buy people. People have been buying people for years. You know, again, takes back to Dale Carnegie's book. So that is, you know, a very, very core part of the learning.
KB, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you so much for your time and attention and interaction today, which is massively important for both KP and myself.
Absolutely.
Lets us know that you're here with us and we're not alone, just staring at a screen.
Yeah.
So look, the recording will be sent out later on today. I've put the link in the chat box for the coaching session, my Instagram, KP's Instagram. I'll also put that in the email that goes out later on as well. If you've enjoyed today, please do let us know. Let me know on Instagram, reply to the email. Feedback is always critical, and two-way conversation is very important also. But thank you so much. Wishing you guys just the most fantastic day ahead.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you.
KP, I'll give you a shout in a bit, yeah?